I may have done these three things different than you did for me to have success on the twin flame journey. The first one is I have invested everything I had in time, effort, and money. And, I'm almost hesitating to say this, but when I thought about what might be a difference, this was honestly what came to the forefront. So I think I just have to be honest and tell you that that is what I believe that could be a difference between you and me. And yes, that's what I did. I invested time, money, and effort. Since I had my own money around the year of 1999 to 2000, I started to invest it in my spiritual development, even though I had very little of it. And I just saw that as an opportunity to start to give to myself. And I did that. And I got the hang of it, and I kept on doing that. And there were certainly times in those early days of me investing in my spiritual learning that I felt a little bit unsure about it, or that I felt like almost ashamed of it or something. Or I remember that very long ago, like I was questioning myself if I should feel ashamed of it or something, or if it was the right thing to do. And I did this sort of besides my university studies. I studied for art history at the university to learn about how to think about art. And I just started doing that. And I also started to invest my time because I started to also help my teacher and teachers investing time. And of course, also investing time in my own spiritual development by reading the books like the autobiography of a yogi and I don't know, all kinds of book. The Power of Now was also something that I read first time around the year 2000, or, those early years, 20 years ago. Yeah, so that is, of course, investing time and money and effort into yourself. And I have always kept at it. And there were also times that I had even less money than I had then in my early autonomous years, my early 20s. And later I had actually even less money. And then I kept on investing in myself. And I think it's important maybe to hear that I have invested a lot deeper monetarily than what I had. And that means that you can do that. You can go below zero, right? You can prioritize your spiritual development to such a degree that you invest other people's money into it, that you invest something that you loan somewhere else so that you make it back later on. This is just an example of what I mean with I invested more than I had. And I certainly did that when I was at a financial low time in my 30s as well. And I kept on doing that, and I kept on doing that. And I also spent specifically for the twin flame solution, the twin flame journey. Specifically for that one, I spent around 5,000, but in a broader sense, I think you should count more on like 30,000. And I once sort of calculated everything that I invested monetarily in my journey, and that's around 500,000. I'm talking about euro, which is approximately dollars, US dollars, to give a rough indication. And that includes me investing time, because there were times that I invested full work years into my spiritual development and not in working for a boss, for instance. And so that is what I counted in that monetary thing as well, because I had little money, but it was fine to survive. And I have to say, I always survived, and it was always fine. And you have to work, of course, with your life, with your way of seeing all of that, with your possibilities to invest, not with mine. But I just needed to say this. I needed to sort of get that out there, that I really did that. And I also invested the time in it. Yeah, I did. I remember in the mid 2000s that I went on week long retreats and so on. So, yes, investing time is important because we're talking about developments that click in and that you can breathe into and stuff when you really are patient. Which is, by the way, a lesson I'm still learning. It's not that the fact that I did that means that I'm a very patient person. Actually, today's inner work was a lot about patience for myself. So interesting, isn't it? So let's go to number 2. I have accepted a teacher. Yes, I often speak about my first spiritual teacher. I met him early in the year 2000. Yeah, that must have been it, right? Yeah, I think so. And that is my spiritual teacher. He was autonomous in what he stood for, but it was very much, let's say, when you look from the outside in, it was very much influenced by Vedic yogic teachings and meditation. But it was a true spiritual teacher that talked with you about your spiritual development to find your true self, and to have that as a foundation for your building of a life in which that light that you essentially are is prioritized and plays the main role and actually forms your life, your outer life. So that was my first spiritual teacher, and I had more spiritual teachers, and I also had specific ones for the twin flame development, which interested me always very much, but that was not stressed in itself as a phenomenon in the school of that first spiritual teacher that I had. But I, among others, it was woven into it, but sort of also after it, I surrendered myself to Divine Mother as my teacher, for instance. Then that took me many years to really surrender to and deepen into. And Divine Mother is the one that gave me the foundations, which I later transformed into the key tool that I teach people now to feel their true feelings so that they can deepen as steps on the journey, and deepen and deepen and deepen, and that forms your journey. And I have also accepted as a teacher the Master Christ, and that was happening on all dimensions and in all planes of existence. And that also took around a decade to fully accept that as a teacher, and to sink into that, and to meet that force, almost like that force in my life. And and I feel that accepting a teacher is a point that may be different than what you are doing, because it really is a relationship, and it is a meeting. It is a true connection that you truly make, and it's real. It's a real person to person, soul to soul, heart to heart, spirit light outflow to spirit light outflow kind of, like loving, reaching out. And when you truly accept such a hand, when you truly hold such a hand, that is when you start to take certain things that come up that are lessons for you to be learned on this journey. You start to take them really seriously, because when you don't have that, you might still try to walk away from the more difficult parts of it, of your inner work that you need to do to come in your divine alignment, to go to your harmonious twin flame union, right? Because that's what you want. And that's totally what you should want, because that is where like the next level of ascended living takes place. and also of ascended money life and of your mission business, etc. So that all takes place there, and it asks to be integrated there. And holding that hand from the teacher is, I would say, really crucial to feel safe in going the depth that it takes. And a teacher is really a sign of the divine in your life that has already gone the journey. So that's also, again, why it is safe and why it is a blessing to have found it. And you can honor that teacher by taking that hand. And my experience is that that teacher is also happy that you're there. You know, it's real. That's also what I mean with it's genuine, it's real. Except when you have a false teacher, don't do that. It's real. They also want to have that connection that is genuine from the heart. Just like the student wants that connection, and it's good for them. And the teacher also feels that it's good and that it's hearty and that it's, meaningful. They're there for a reason too. Let's put it like that. And that makes everything just very, very meaningful, because there's a relationship, and everything that is truly meaningful happens in relationship. Just like you make come true what the divine has in store for you by repairing the relationship between you and the divine. And just as you repair the relationship with your twin flame by having the divine alignment inside your core, and many beautiful things happen there as well, because it's a relationship. Yeah. And the teacher plays a role in that too. It's really like the divine, the teacher, and the true twin flame. And actually the twin flame, your twin flame, is also a large teacher for you. Absolutely. Yeah. And that may bring you deeper in a very trusted, emotionally safe feeling way as well. Absolutely. But then we're now like in a sort of like, but how do I get to the twin flame, and how do I get to understand the teachership of my twin flame in my life regarding me in the right way, and how do I treat that in the right way, etc., etc. So that is still why a twin flame teacher is a good format for the divine to make creations in. Especially right now, because on the earth, twin flame ascension is still new, twin flame harmonious union, and all the fruits that it can bring for you and for the world is still relatively very new. Although we're all going to go there, and it's inevitable, and it's for everyone, it is relatively new. Not as an idea, not as a mythology that's age old, but as something that is really step by step lived in an actual daily life that is still very new. So accepting a teacher is what I did, and I want to say that I already explained how I did that and that I did that, but I had also big difficulties with that because I struggled with authority conflicts, and because I had conflicts with my parents, because they're also in a sort of a teacher role when you're a child, because they pretty much abused me as a child in a narcissistic sense, and within that umbrella of narcissistic abuse also the sexual abuse, and that creates a lot of mistrust. So of course I was confronted with all of that in relation to the teacher, but guess what? That was eventually what I needed to heal for the relationship with myself, for the relationship with the divine to come to bloom, and for the relationship with my true twin flame to come to bloom too. How else are you going to have a beautiful relationship within the union of your twin flame connection than having gone through the lessons that are about transforming that narcissistic abuse and sexual abuse. So as a child, not knowing what a loving relationship even is in many ways, and in all ways. That, of course, plays a large role in that too. So relationship is really all there is, and the relationship with the teacher is a sort of a... You're just tasting what that is for you. You're working stuff out that you otherwise would also need to do between you and the divine, but a teacher makes it more concrete, and stuff that you would otherwise also need to work out between you and your twin flame, but with the teacher it is more readily available, and more of a context around what you need to learn. Like, this is it is explained, and it has a context for learning, but also a context for the love and the unconditional giving you a shoulder to cry on, that kind of compassion is what I'm trying to say. That is really important to learn. So it's a lot of relearning with a teacher, relearning how to trust, relearning how to do relationship in general, with whomever, with whatever, repairing relationship itself inside of you. And that is, I feel, beautifully lived with a teacher. Yeah. So, and of course, this teacher is a professional too, in the capacity of how they relate to you for the specific purpose for spiritual students. And my teachers were, and therefore the investing in my journey was, of course, a lot of the time, but not always, giving the teacher money for their being there, their services, the retreats, the discussing my problems and my issues and all of that. And I also enjoyed a lot of spiritual help around the teacher, like you have the people that, the compassionate other helpers around everything that is the core teacher-student relationship. And I also paid them, because they are human too, and they have their life of physical roof above their head and food on the table too. And and I always felt that it was money well spent on myself and the development that I stood for, what was really, my future. And the third way that I might be different than you is that I thus accepted to be a student. And that asks for a lot of humility. It asks for a certain openness. And I had trouble with all of that. So don't be mistaken. The fact that I say that I've been a student and I accepted to be a student and that it was crucial doesn't mean that it was easy for me. It actually was difficult for me. Because of the ego. That's what it comes down to. And when you look psychologically, that was also because I was entrained as a narcissistic victim to have a certain belief in a false personality that was that's what narcissism does, when you look at the psychiatric truth of how that works. So there was a lot of ego to work through in a specific way. But that, by the way, doesn't mean that for you it won't be so because you don't connect with a psychiatric terminology, not at all. Ego is very common. It is many things that you won't usually realize, and it prevents you from being a student. That is to say that it prevents you from feeling genuinely through and making that feeling movement go through you until the genuine depth that it is indicating for you. And the ego is that which prevents you from doing that. And there is so much. I mean, if we would need to sum up what all could be ego, then there's no end to that list. And at the same time, when you go deeper and you start to realize that ego just never really existed at all, but it was some sort of a piece of you that autonomously thought they needed to stand up to protect the master, which is the soul, which is the true you. And yeah, so it's actually the ego tries to be your best worker bee, so to speak, but it's not, and it's just standing in the way. And yeah, that starts to be worked out when you accept to be a student, and it's just actually only beautiful because you will go deeper than the ego in all these points that will come up for you for that to be done inside of you. And then you fall into that place, what it is all about. You fall in the union consciousness, you fall in the miracle consciousness, you fall in the energetic pool of the divine, you fall into your true nature, you fall into your twin flame love core. It doesn't matter really what you call it, but you sort of fall into it. And when you've fallen into it so much that now it has become your new norm, well, then you have, sort of completed the circle that it's all about, and you find yourself to be transformed. And that is also the moment when your twin flame shows up and also desires to stick around. So being a student is really crucial as well. And even though I had trouble with it, I accepted it, and it helped me nevertheless, and I can now relay that to you. So I hope this helped, and I would love to see you in a new video. And before that, I'm actually going to send you to another one. And let's, send you to the video that is about you repairing yourself even more. And that is going to appear here. You will click on it, and I will see you there. Love from Petra.